Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rabbit, and I'm going to be trying something a bit new for this one. I'm going to be using a script. So, let's get right to it. Alright. Question. What the fuck happened to alignment? So, alignment has always been this thing that's never really been properly used, or really its main use has been policing people into acting a certain way. You know, lawful good paladin decides, this village needs a slaughtering. You wouldn't do that, you're awful good. That kind of thing. Well, while that is accurate, that's not exactly what it's intended for. And it's, frankly, not for every game. Some people will prefer a game type that is more gray, more morally questionable, and alignments, if they were implemented in those types of games, would shift quite a bit. So, what is alignment? Alignment is the measure of morality, selfishness versus selflessness, as well as lawfulness versus anarchism. We've got about 9 of them, 8 of them matter. We've got lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. Sometimes the true, or the neutral good, neutral evil are just simply referred to as true good and true evil. So, what are alignments specifically? Well, good versus evil in my mind represents selflessness versus selfishness. A good character can still do evil by attempting to be too selfless and facing a moral quandary in which they have to pick a side. A good character a evil character will oftentimes do good because it benefits them. That's just how it works. Because it's a case of what benefits me now in the evil mindset versus what benefits everyone now in the good mindset. Law versus chaos is order versus anarchy. It's pretty straightforward. If you are lawful, you follow the law. You, instead of grabbing an axe and running off to slay those goblins yourself, you talk to the guards, see if you can round up some boys, and get an actual military militia formed to handle those goblins. Chaotic neutral is the fucking barbarian, or not chaotic neutral, just chaotic in general, is the fucking barbarian with an axe or a bow or whatnot that just runs off and handles the goblins themselves. So, that's a general overview of the alignments. Neutral is just kind of there. I'll get into neutral later. I don't like it either. So, lawful good. These are some general overviews. Lawful good should be a little bit bumbling. They may not be the most intelligent, but they are good-natured. They understand the law, they understand teamwork is important, they try to follow the law as best they can, and they're very mindful of what could happen if they were to break the law. Oftentimes they will think, how can I use this law to help other people? However, a lot of players weirdly like to play this as lawful evil. The reason I say this is because instead of thinking, how can I use this to benefit other people, they say, how can I use this to get everyone to listen to me and do what I want to do? It's where lawful stupid comes from. However, it should also be mentioned, lawful good does not necessarily mean lawful nice. What is good for you may not be what you want. Alright, there's lawful good. And there's lawful good. Some examples. 7 Samurai. I don't exactly like what they're doing, but it's the right thing to do, and it's the lawful thing to do. Link. I kind of disagree with this one. Honestly, Link strikes me more as either neutral good or chaotic good. He's not exactly beholden to laws, He is a good little boy, but again, he does his own thing. So, speaking of neutral good is you know of laws, and you're not particularly beholden to them. You will try to follow them if you can, but if law contradicts good, then you are neutral good. Then you will do the good thing rather than the legal thing. I have no idea who this is, but a good example would be, I'd think, not Antonio Montoya, but the main character from The Princess Bride. This is probably the fucker that is the main character from The Princess Bride. I'm just so used to seeing him with his mask on. Or Gandalf. You just do good. You may not be the nicest, but you are the one that will, in hindsight, be the most fondly remembered. However, a lot of people like to play this as chaotic, just simply because it's not lawful. Which, the main difference between neutral and chaotic in regards to laws is that neutral understands the law and they will try to fulfill the law if at all possible. However, they are not against breaking the law if the law gets in the way of their real objective. Unless breaking the law would do harm in this instance. Oftentimes, historically, these are the good kings, because can't conquer and hold lands without breaking rules. You need to have a leader that is willing to break rules. That's why lawful generally will never be your leader. They will be lawful characters should be the followers underneath good leaders. And then that brings us to I skipped chaotic good. Well, lawful neutral. I am the law. Lawful neutral is neither good nor evil, either through balanced tastes or they just don't give a shit. Largely stuff like town guards. They're not there to change the world. They're there to get a paycheck and make sure no one fucks them over, really. And honestly, this is kind of what people are referring to when they think of lawful stupid. This is, I must follow these laws to the letter and the spirit. But I think if you were to approach lawful neutral as just a very traditional person that values their morals and rules above most everything else, but occasionally slips. Occasionally they do a thing that not exactly adherent to the laws, but it upholds the spirit of a law. Then I think they could be pretty interesting characters. It just requires an experienced hand. There's chaotic good. Guess I got the slides in the wrong order. Chaotic good is fuck your law. This is what's happening. We are going to help people regardless of what the fuck the king says. Does good above all else. Doesn't give a shit about consequences. The ends justify the means. But they can also tend to work like hippies. These are just, come on man, you gotta chill out. Just chill out. It'll work out, man. Yeah. Oftentimes, however, people will get mad because chaotic good is still criminals. Criminals do not have to be evil. Illegal activities are just simply not lawful activities. That's just what they are. Chaos is the appearance of law. That being said, they might have personal rules like, thou shalt not kill for all of 3 seconds until killing becomes kind of required. Or just, it would be a lot easier to get this over with if I could kill that giant orc overlord over there. And, also, good kings can be chaotic good. They'll be a little bit more unstable if they're chaotic good, but generally they will be there for the good of the people. They also may not be there on the throne at all. Just say. So, lawful neutral, again, already went over this. It's just one of those things of they follow the law to both the letter and the spirit as often as possible. However, again, much like Picard, they are human. Sometimes the letter of the law gets in the way of the spirit of the law, in which case oftentimes they will follow the spirits in the instance where it's not exactly seen of in a good light. This can actually get them in trouble with the law, interestingly enough, just simply because they're trying to uphold one version of the law, whereas someone else, probably lawful evil, I'll get to them in a little bit, are trying to just twist it to benefit them. So that brings us to true neutral. Like I said earlier, I don't like this one. True neutral is kind of one of those things in D&D and systems like it, where there is no reason to have an adventurer that is true neutral. There is no reason for someone that is true neutral to be an adventurer. Why the fuck are you there if you are true neutral? People will play this as neutral evil, actually, where they just swap over to the side that's benefiting them the most. However, that's not true. True neutral are there for their own survival. They're there to keep their head down, make sure that they make it from day to day. That's all that they are in there for. And for that reason, they're mostly peasants. The people in the background. They are not main characters. They are not the people that actively go out and hunt goblins, because why would they? That's dangerous. Let the adventurers handle that. No player should ever pick true neutral. If you are doing this, you are doing it for a troll, and I sincerely recommend that if alignment is important to a DM, just say no. True neutral is not an option for a player character. And as mentioned earlier, often played as lawful evil or neutral evil because of the fact that, frankly, they are self-centered in that they mostly just want to continue existing. They don't care about anyone else around them. They just want to continue. Although, it does also get played as lawful evil because that's malignment. That is actually the reason. So, chaotic neutral. Again, where the fuck are you with the party? Oftentimes it's just played as lol, so random. Or they steal everything that's not nailed down. Steal the nails! And then proceed to steal everything left. Why are they with the party? A chaotic neutral character has no reason to ever work with a group. These are the freedom for freedom's sake type people. It's not that they think there's some sort of moral questioning about it. They think that either they are insane or they just want to do what they do. In which case, the parties are just hangers-on to their story. This, ironically, is a very self-centered character. Despite not being evil. The difference between neutral and evil is that neutral will attempt to be the good guy. They're not afraid to do evil if it means that they survive. However, they're not actively trying to be an asshole to get one up and put themselves on the top of the pile. Chaotic neutral just kind of gets played as chaotic evil a lot of times. And, yeah, people like to hide behind chaotic neutral, or they like to say chaotic neutral is my alignment just because they don't want to fuck around with alignment, which I think that's more a thing on the GM than on the player. If you're using alignment as this, no, you must do this, for the player, then, and chastising them when they don't do it, then yeah, they're going to say, I'm chaotic neutral, I do whatever the fuck I want. Because that's just kind of what people want to do. And, yeah. So, like I said, they're oftentimes played as chaotic. They are oftentimes played as chaotic evil because they they steal a bunch of shit and they will kill pretty much anyone just for shits and giggles. And that's not really their alignment. That's evil. That's not neutral. Neutral is willing to do evil, would prefer not to. And frankly, that's not acceptable. Rick from Rick and Morty is again one of those that I kind of disagree with. Yes, he is very chaotic, but he's evil as fuck. He casually destroys universes for shits and or giggles. Just saying, that's not neutral. That's, I'm here to fuck your shit and fuck your rules. Also, Jack Sparrow also gets put into the chaotic neutral standpoint, and he's actually a good example of it because he does his own thing. When he is with the party, with Will and Elizabeth, then he's there because of his own reasons. He's not there because, oh, well, I need the help for a thing. He's there because, oh, we have similar goals. Let's help each other reach those goals. And the main difference being that the first one, he actively seeks them out for help. The second one, well, fuck, we're doing the same thing. Might as well. And I know that's not Jack Sparrow, but yeah. However, he's also not afraid to leave the party. And if you have a player that is dead set on playing a chaotic neutral character, they should have a character that they play when their original goes off and does their own thing. Because they will do that. They just will. And they should, frankly. So, lawful evil. This one gets a lot of flack. This is actually my favorite one. Because this means that they will follow the law. They're trustworthy to a certain degree. But they are self-serving. Think a lawyer. They understand the law, but they want to see how the fuck they can twist this to get what they want out of it. Same thing for a politician. They will follow either the letter or the spirit of the law depending on which one benefits them the most. And they will argue that fucking point depending on which situation it is. Again, lawyer. However, this does not necessarily mean lawful mean. In fact, ironically, the evil alignments should be the nicest characters. Because why the fuck does it matter? Like, what does just randomly killing people do for me? Evil characters weirdly should probably be of slightly higher intelligence, just simply because it takes a certain level of a person to be able to just approach things from a logical standpoint and say, yes, this is what will benefit me the most. No, if I wanted to kill this person, what would that do for me? It would get them out of the way, but how can I do that legally? How can I do that without getting in trouble myself? Knows which to listen to for their own benefit, can be trusted more than expected, because they often have rules, and they will follow those rules. However, you have to be very specific with what those rules say, as well as the spirit of those rules, and make sure you very clearly define the agreement. Otherwise, they will twist it and say, we agreed to this, I am doing it, we agreed I wouldn't kill people, and I'm not. It's gravity that's killing people. Yeah, that kind of thing. As they push people off of cliffs. Or at least do the whole lemming thing of leading them off the cliff. And for whatever reason, they get misunderstood as lawful good, because people will play lawful good as lawful evil, frankly. Like, it's just a thing that happens. I touched on it with the lawful good thing. However, another thing is lawful evil is very self-serving. They will attempt to gain as much power as they can within a legal system. However, much like what was stated before, a lawful evil character should not be your leader. In this instance, Cain, I would say, is more either neutral evil or possibly chaotic evil. Because you can't be lawful and write laws. You, as a lawful character, should follow laws and know the laws. But it is not within a lawful character's purview to write laws. Additionally, they could be some of the coldest bastards that you will ever play. Because, unlike a lawful neutral character, which prefers to do good, not afraid to do evil, lawful evil just does evil. If it's what the fuck ever they desire, then they'll do it. They'll do good. They'll remain on the fence if they want to. Whatever benefits them immediately and in the long run. And that's why I love playing them. Because you can have a lawful evil character that's just the nicest guy in the party, frankly. I've played characters where the lawful evil character was the nicest person outwardly in the party compared to 3 chaotic goods and a chaotic neutral. The chaotic neutral was played as chaotic evil, I'll be honest. And a chaotic evil should be an asshole. And the chaotic goods got into so much trouble because they were weirdly being, like, they were playing it more as chaotic neutral, or at least neutral good. So, there's lawful evil. As touched on before, neutral evil understands the law. With neutral evil is very similar to neutral good. They understand the law, and they try to stay within it because it keeps them out of trouble, but they're not afraid to break it if it means benefiting them. And that's the difference. A lawful evil character will not break the law if they can. They will work to their damnedest to stay within legal limits. And that's why they're trustworthy. Neutral evil can be trustworthy so long as the deal continues to benefit them. But they will break it if it stops being so. They also tend to be the greediest. Like, never let your neutral evil rogue go on ahead. They will loot everything, take the best for themselves or the nicest things for themselves, leave the rest for the party so that they can keep face, and then continue along. And for that reason, I say neutral evil are probably the best at scheming. These are your Moriartys. These are chaotic evil. I only have the one slide for neutral evil. Balls. But yes, these are your Moriartys. These are your characters these are your evil villains. These are what your villains should be. Not because they're Lord is so evil. Fuck you, He-Man. Levels of evil. It's these guys are in the background. You may not even know they're doing anything despite you until you just happen to find a trail back to them. And these could be the nicest people in the world. Actually, it's beneficial for them to be kind. It is beneficial for them to be nice to people because it gets them things. It gets them trust. It gets them into people's good graces. And weirdly, these fit well into pretty much any party. Not necessarily because, and GMs will say, well, how the fuck, why, how, these are my villains. Well, it's really simple. If your villain is going to fuck with this character has a vested interest in fucking with that villain. It's that simple. Additionally, neutral evil work well as the evil overlords, or even the beloved king. The king that everyone loves, because under their rule, the kingdom benefits the most. Because when the kingdom sees benefit, so too does the king. And to be well loved ensures that even when they die, they are not forgotten. They are still praised. And a true neutral evil character will use that to their benefit. Fullmetal Alchemist is actually a good example of a neutral evil king in King Bradley, where he was well loved. He was one of the most loved people in the nation, except by a select few that uncovered his plans. Until his plans were thwarted, and it no longer became beneficial for him to be well loved, that's when he started killing people. That's when he started going on practically an all-out war on his own people. In the party, I should warn GMs, if you have two of these in a party, it will lead to eternal games of one-upsmanship. Of just people trying to continuously getting more and more and more on each other. And that's toxic to a party. I'd say if you allow one of these in your party, only allow one at a time. And that's a very similar rule to our next topic. Chaotic evil. What everyone means when they put chaotic neutral on their character sheet. They give no fucks about the law. They simply want it to be there. In fact, they are abhorrent to laws. They are about as trustworthy as you would trust a stone to move of its own accord. They're about as trustworthy as throwing a dead cat and expecting it to be alive at the end. They want to destroy all forms of order. These are your evil warlords with the slave army that goes around destroying villages because they're there. These are the people that will break into a home, pocket all the goodies, and proceed to piss on the walls, and maybe kill the dog, write their name in blood, and a big fuck you on the wall with it. Because they just wanted to. Whereas lawful evil and neutral evil are good fits for the party, chaotic evil cannot work in a party unless it is the only chaotic evil character. In which case, they're trying to subjugate the rest of the party. And like I said, they care not for laws because they want to control it all. They want to be the one, basically, on top of the pile. A lawful evil character will have similar aspirations in that he wants to control the current system. A chaotic evil character wants to break down the system and build their own thing. That's the main difference. Neutral evil characters will just do whatever the fuck benefits them the most. So if you keep it beneficial for them to stay in a party, they will stay in the party. If you keep it beneficial in the long run for a neutral evil character to fuck up the villain, then they will continue to do so. They will continue to travel with the party, and while your paladin, lawful good paladin, may not trust them, which is warranted, I'll be honest, unlike a lawful evil character, they will continue with an agreement so long as that agreement is beneficial. And that's why I never particularly allow chaotic evil or chaotic neutral. Because A, chaotic neutral gets played as chaotic evil. It just does. And like I said earlier, if there are two chaotic evil characters in the party, a lot of times there's going to be some sort of infighting. However, if there's any lawful members of the party, chaotic evil is going to pick fights with them. And weirdly gets confused with lawful evil for some reason. And like I said, chaotic neutral oftentimes is played as chaotic evil. Another way to play chaotic evil is just, fuck it, I know I'm evil. Let's just let's discover all the ways to skin a baby. Like the Joker. And, well, they may have personal limits, like, for instance, the Joker would say he doesn't want to kill Batman. He wants Batman to kill him. Because Batman works as a lawful figure. In that instance, weirdly, the Joker could be a party member to Batman. Like, I could see the two of them working together if they both had the same goal, and the Joker got benefited from working with the Batman, because it would give him a closer angle to fuck with the Batman. So, why use alignments? You might be saying, well, they're stupid. They're just guidelines for morality. Well, for base games such as D&D, Pathfinder, Starfinder, any system with a celestial melee, and when I say celestial, I mean planar, it has a heaven and a hell. That game world is inherently black and white moral-wise. But my main caveat to this is that keep the black and white to the outer planes, such as heaven, hell, whatever's standing in for your chaotic plane, and whatever's standing in for your lawful plane. It depends on whatever the GM particularly wants. So, in that instance, the material world becomes a place of fluctuation. It becomes a place where people can change alignments. It should be difficult to change alignments, but it should not be impossible. It should take sustained effort to go from chaotic neutral to chaotic good, or chaotic neutral to neutral good, or neutral evil, chaotic evil, that kind of thing. So, in addition to that, I'm particularly a fan of saying your alignment is your tendency. However, if, for instance, a goblin, they're chaotic evil inherently. But if a goblin is raised under certain conditions, they could be turned chaotic good. They could be turned lawful good, for that matter. It just takes a sustained effort and repeated workings, and eventually you can get populations of goblins that don't even require maintenance to keep in the lawful good state. They inherently raise their own children to be either lawful good or some variant thereof. They might still have destructive tendencies, but they at least know how to channel that in a healthy manner to be lawful good. And like I said, if there is a celestial melee, such as the Blood War in D&D, and I'm not going to go into details of that. It's basically just angels versus demons, and also demons versus demons. There is a inherent good versus evil in a world that is featuring a heaven and a hell. That is something that is inescapable. Now, you can make it so that angels are just manifestations of selflessness, in which case they're still manifestations of good. It is very difficult to make it so that angels are not inherently good without making them something that is not an angel. And for that reason, I'd say if you don't want to use alignment, don't have a heaven or hell. Just don't. Make it so that you have, for a D&D game, you have maybe the Mortal Realm, then you have the Shadowfell, and you have the Feywild. And then for an afterlife, people just get reincarnated. That's just a thing that happens. And you may have gods, in which case, heaven in your instance is just where the gods live, and hell in your instance is just where the evil gods live. You could have heaven and hell in that instance and not have alignment. But even still, there's tinges of that alignment. If you go to hell, it should suck ass, because everyone is trying to get to their own benefit at all times. And evil tends to be something of a... tends to be something of a glue, tends to be something of a... I want to say sealant for some reason, but it's not accurate. It tends to be something of a bonding agent, if used sparingly. Because if someone is self-interested, and they're listened to, then oftentimes there'll be something of the voice of reason. Whereas too much of it leads to too much self-interest, which is volatile. And the same can be said for good. If you have one good character in an all-evil party, they can be your moral compass for that party. And frankly, they kind of need it sometimes. If they get too lost in themselves, then they need someone to say, hey, look, I know you want to kill that orphan because he's got like 5 gold on him, but look at it this way. If that orphan has that 5 gold still, You can train him, teach him how to perform a task, and you won't have to pay for it because the orphan can pay for his own things for the next 5 years. And then guess what? You have someone that you can hire to do your own thing for you. And while I'd prefer that thing be good and well-intentioned, you must see that there's a benefit to that type of thing. Which, having a moral compass for a party can be fun for some players. Some players just don't want it. And if you want an all-evil party, fuck it. They'll be murder hobos. Just accept it. If you want an all-good party, fuck it. They'll probably still be murder hobos. Just for evil shit instead. So, how do we make alignments matter again? Do you want to, first of all? If you do, then continue with this video. If you do not, really, the rest of the video is not important. However, my recommendation for making alignment matter again is, firstly, don't use it as a way to penalize your players. Don't use it as a way to say, no, that's not how you should be acting. Use it as, if you want to add alignment, have it have incentives tied to it. Have it have incentives to playing to alignment. And for that reason, I would tie it to the XP system, a leveling system, and possibly, if anyone's familiar with Pathfinder Society or the Adventurers League, I would tie it to a reputation system of sorts. And a boon system, if anyone's familiar with things like fate points, bennies, inspiration, that kind of thing. So, and I would say, make your own XP system outside of the actual XP system. Don't just say well, you play to your alignment so you get 300 XP. Yeah, no, don't do that. I would say, again, make your own XP systems. In this instance, I would say, for the rest of the video, I'm going to say how I would do it, and you can use this as a guideline if you want. I know some people struggle with this kind of thing. So, I would break down the alignments into the ones that matter. For instance, good, evil, lawful, and chaotic. So, those are the alignments you want to play to. Neutral should be something of a recessive alignment. You don't really... for the purpose of things like lawful neutral, neutral good, neutral evil, and chaotic neutral, you should be... it should make it easier to play to the type you want to focus on, because it doesn't factor into the maths. So how do I do it? Again, don't penalize it. Make it an incentive to play to your alignment. For instance, if you get a certain number, then just you either can level or you can spend these points getting gifts, getting items, getting followers, that kind of thing. So, the first thing I do is make lawful a thing, which is service. Service is what it sounds like. It is just doing jobs. For instance, you get a point of service whenever you successfully complete a job. You also get additional points of service for successfully completing optional objectives. Upholding agreements to their letter. If you make an agreement, do not go back on it. I would not say penalize a character for going back on agreement, but they lose out on the points if they go back on it. That is just permanently a thing that they cannot gain points from if they go back on it. Also, civil duties during downtime. If your player says, I want to help out with building a road. Just maybe volunteer work, maybe you're paid, maybe we're just that kind of agreement. I want to help out building a road. I want to help out at the judge house. I want to help out just doing upkeep work for the city, like government jobs. Then I'd say maybe give them a point for every week that they do that or something like that. If this sounds easy, That's because it should be. Lawful should be your standard for a heroic or normal adventuring party. Because, like I touched on earlier, lawful is the let's round up some boys and go deal with these goblins. Chaotic is those as they run out with the fucking axe or bow or whatever weapon they could grab to deal with the goblins. An adventuring party is inherently a lawful structure. There is inherently a familial relationship between the adventurers, at least after some time in which they are helping each other to reach a goal, which is the spirit of a law, frankly. Additionally, I would suggest if a lawful character happens to work out logistics, for instance, if you want to base it around a war campaign, then perhaps overwhelmingly successful tactics earns them a law point. I mean, if you want to have law, there's a argument to be made, and WebDM does it really well. I may link to their video here in the description, where there is an argument of combat for sport versus combat as war. Combat as war is one of those things that if you're like, hey, I value tactics, I value intelligent fighting in combat, then you may just want to tell your players that up front, because not all players will sign up to that. That is something you have to sign up for. Although, in my opinion, I like to have a mix. Combat as sport is like, you see a horde of goblins. All right, boys, let's get to it. And you just run in for the goblins. And that's just mechanically how D&D is kind of played. I'll be honest. That's what it's intended for, but the combat as war is a more realistic approach on it. So, for chaos, because I've always been a fan of the law versus chaos alignments rather than the good versus evil, because So, for chaos, I would say make something like anarchy, if you want, which is, you get a point of this for spreading chaos. You know, if you pull enough pranks that happen to disgruntle or disrupt daily life on a large enough or impressive scale that's larger than just for one person. If you disrupt daily life for an entire village, it doesn't have to be an evil way. It could be just like, you show up and you start throwing a fucking party. That's technically anarchic, because if people start showing up to the party because you threw a really good party, then they're not working, they're not contributing to their society, they're partying. Causing large amounts of unrest. That's something that would be more of an evil thing. That's like actively saying, hey, we should, do a strike or perform a protest against this thing. Just protest the king type thing. And yeah, people are probably going to die due to that, but it sends a message. Again, playing epic pranks. For instance, if you have multi-tier pranks that are just ridiculously well thought out, give that player an anarchy point. Just do it. They've earned it, honestly, at that point. Disrupting plans. Again, this is a counterpoint to a lawful character. If they have really good tactics going, and if they have a really good setup going, then finding a way to turn those plans on their head and use those plans against them is what a chaotic character should do. Now, this could also be kind of easy. These work well for the whole traveling bard archetype, or the spy or the guerrilla fighter, campaigns where players are more clandestine and indirect with their styles of combating powerful powers or groups, is where it fits. So a good mix of law and chaos is good for a party, honestly. So for good, I would say maybe something like charity. Or you can swap it with piety if you want to lean more on the religion. Performing jobs without accepting pay, or as little as possible, such as a village pools all of its money together to pay for you to handle the goblins. A good character should get a point if they just say they don't want to offend, so they pick up one coin off the table. Say, this will be my pay. I'll handle the goblins. That's something a good character would do in my mind. Because most people like to say, nah, no payment. This is our duty. This is what we do. In that instance, that's more of a lawful thing, honestly. Because if it's their duty, then they're probably getting paid by the king to handle it. If they're an official adventurer, they're being paid by the king or some other official organization to handle the situation, in which case the villagers have already paid their dues. Additionally, donating large sums to charity. It's in the name. Donating to charity, assisting people out of the kindness of your own heart, and that does not mean, like, let's build a road, let's build up let's do some maintenance on the city. This is like, hey ma'am, I saw your cat's in a tree. You want to help me get it down? Alright. And you just do it. Shit like that. And some DMs may want to, if they want to make it difficult to get these points, they'd probably say it might take a couple of those little things or something big for that. My thing is, these points are spent on more than just leveling, if you want to implement them fully. So, don't be afraid to give 1 or 2 points out per session, at the very least. So, for evil, deception. Carrying out impressive schemes. Long-term schemes that can't be tracked back to you and are to your benefit, not just for shits and giggles. They are actively benefiting you. Even if it's to the detriment, especially give a point to this if it's to the detriment of someone else. Tricking others into benefiting you, especially to their detriment. For instance, this is, say, someone showing up and tricking someone into signing a contract that mortgages their home and just earns you a ton of money. That kind of thing. Depending on the campaign you're running, this should not be randomly killing innocents, as if you start giving these points out for killing things of opposite alignments, and this is something I did think of, if you give out points for killing things of opposite or opposing alignments, then it just gets back to the whole murder hobo, you only get experience for killing things type thing. And evil should be hard, but rewarding. Evil characters are likely to grow slowly if they're through acquiring deception, but they're more likely to come out ahead of good characters in terms of monetary wealth and favors that they can pull. For neutral characters, I have been ignoring the slides. So, there's service. Anarchy, of course. It's important. Having a good mix of law and having a good mix of all of these, honestly, is good. Like, you want a little bit of everything in your adventuring party. Charity. Handing out food out of your own coffers, that kind of thing. Deception. These are your aristocrats tricking the peasants into working for them for their life for what seems like good benefits, but in reality, they didn't read the fine print, probably because they couldn't read, so they get dicked out of a lot of that pay. And for neutral, fucking nothing. Neutral is the fence-sitting option. If you are true, and yes, this does mean, if you are true neutral, you cannot level. Like I said, if you're true neutral in a fucking party, you should have stayed home. That's just a reality. And if you didn't stay home, you're not true neutral. I'll be honest. That's how it should play out. But in terms of the maths, in the case of lawful neutral, neutral good, chaotic neutral, and neutral evil, focus on the non-neutral alignment for the maths. If it's a split alignment, we'll get into the maths later. If it's a split alignment, split the points between each alignment. Your players should not be playing, I'm going to reiterate it, your players should not be playing true neutral characters. They should not. If they are true neutral, tell them, alright, your character stayed home. They're not an adventurer. If they're set on that, first session, alright, you stay in the glade, true neutral druid. Why? Because you're just trying to get day-to-day, doing druid things, handling nature. But there's a disruption against nature, alright. Then you're neutral good, or neutral evil. Or chaotic neutral. You are not true neutral unless you sit down and do nothing of importance. True neutral stays the fuck home. So, in terms of maths, keep the points low. You want to make it feel good whenever a player character gets a point. And in that manner, work out obvious ways to earn these characters. I've given a few work out obvious ways to give these points. I've worked out a few examples, but if you're going to use this, you should probably work out in your world what counts as this, what counts as that kind of thing. Mostly so players know how to work towards them. And if you're going to tie it into leveling, make it so that it does not require a large amount of experience. For instance, if a character has a neutral alignment, such as neutral evil, neutral good, lawful neutral, chaotic neutral, make it so that it maybe costs 10 times their current level in points for either the law, good, evil, like service, deception, charity, or anarchy. It takes 10 of those points to gain a level. And I would say that when a character chooses their alignment at the beginning, those are the points they need to level. They can change their alignment later, but they have to effectively get another level of points for whatever alignment they're wanting to get to. For instance, if you want to go from lawful good to lawful neutral A, you need enough service points to get your next level for law, and then instead of charity, you need enough deception to get your next level for evil. So, these points can either be spent for the level, which, if you want a much slower rate of leveling, I would suggest this. If not, just have it be total points. And make it so that they can spend these points on other things. So, if it's total points, that's actually kind of what I'd suggest if you want to keep the leveling at a good pace. And tying the level requirements into their level makes it so that it's steadily increasing how many points that they need. But if you do this, it can make levels a lot faster, I'll put it that way, because you only need 10 more points to get to your next level. That's it. So, to each their own, I guess. It's up to you if you want to do that, if you want to do this at all. And, like I've stated earlier, if this doesn't fit your world, feel free to leave this out. But if you want to have cosmic conflicts, and you want alignment to matter, this is a way to do it. So, these ones, totals and keep points into their next level. For split alignments like lawful good, make it character level times 5 instead of times 10, but they have to get that times 5 of each point type. And you could say, well, maybe they just need to get a mixture of the 2 points. Well, then they're going to start favoring one, and frankly, if they start favoring one, they should just lean into that one a little harder. And just switch over to a neutral. Frankly. Boons. Boons are what you might spend these points on, aside from levels. If you make it so that you need total points for levels, so like how XP works normally, I'd say you could also do this for a Dark Souls campaign if you're still using normal XP, is you make these points spendable. Work out how much each point is worth, and work out how much these points can do. So, for instance, if you spend a point of service, or if you spend a point of anarchy, you might be able to get like some kind of shitty items or some kind of shitty followers. In the case of anarchy, I'd say that should lend more towards items, because you're unlikely to get followers. And in this instance, it should feel more like a reputation. Like you have built a reputation as someone that is against law. You have built a reputation for someone that is for freedom. In that instance, I could also see people saying, well, you should get followers and items. But for chaos, it doesn't really feel right for them to get followers. I'd also say that if you want to make the points more generalized in what kind of boons that they can offer, I'd say maybe offer a form of pseudo smite or pseudo cure wounds that ties into the hit dice system for 5e D&D, because the hit dice system is woefully underutilized, frankly. And if you have a secondary form of healing, it takes a load off of the cleric, frankly. Or if you want to just like make it flat d8s, that's also perfectly acceptable. Equipment versus assistance, favors versus coercion. Yeah, I'd say doing that. For instance, good might be what you have to, or if you want to tie it to alignments even harder, good, like charity points might be what you have to spend for healing, whereas deception is what you might have to spend for the pseudo smite, and that kind of thing. You could also use this for the inspiration system and say you have to spend you have to spend either 2 points, for instance, if you have one of those neutral alignments, you have to spend 2 points or 1 point of each alignment in order to get a point of inspiration type thing. That's just a recommendation, and much like all of these have been recommendations for from one world builder to the other. Frankly, this is just my musings on how to get alignment to matter. If you don't think alignment should matter, then honestly, this video may not have been for you. If you are like me and are looking at the system like, this is just a vestigial thing that's been left over in tradition at this point. Why is this still here? If it doesn't have a use, then give it a use. I've listed a way to give it a use in this system in this video, but if you think of other uses for it, then just go right ahead. It's your game, frankly. The world is in your hands. So, this has been Rabbit, and this has been my thoughts on alignment, and what I would probably do if I want to make alignment matter again. So, I wish you all a good day. Happy gaming, and have a nice day. Goodbye.